I was once a successful software engineer with a beautiful fiancée named Jessica. After 3 amazing years together, we were deep into planning our wedding when my world shattered. Jessica asked for a break to reconnect with her ex-boyfriend Dylan, promising she would return if things did not work out with him. The proposal felt like a knife straight to my heart. I stood there, frozen, unable to process her words or the fact that I was suddenly her backup plan. Looking back, that moment changed everything in ways neither of us expected. Before I continue this story, let me know where you are watching from. Hit that like button and subscribe if you want to hear more real-life stories like mine. I met Jessica at my college friend Tom's housewarming party 4 years ago. She walked in wearing a blue summer dress, and our eyes locked across the crowded living room. Something about her smile made me gather the courage to approach her. We discovered we both loved hiking classic films and had the same offbeat sense of humor that left others scratching their heads. Our connection was immediate and deep. We exchanged numbers that night, and by the end of our first official date at a small Italian restaurant downtown, I knew there was something special between us. Jessica worked as a graphic designer for a marketing agency, and her creative perspective complemented my more analytical approach to life. After 6 months of dating, we were practically inseparable. Our friends joked that we were already an old married couple with our comfortable routines and inside jokes. At the 1-year mark, we decided to move in together. I remember carrying boxes up to our 3rd-floor apartment, sweating in the summer heat, but feeling like the luckiest man alive. The proposal happened during our weekend trip to Lake Tahoe. I had planned everything, meticulously hiding the ring in my hiking boot. We climbed to a scenic overlook, just as the sun was setting over the water, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and purples. When I dropped to one knee and asked Jessica to spend her life with me, her tearful yes made me feel invincible. The diamond ring sparkled on her finger as we called our families with the news. Both of our families were thrilled. My parents had loved Jessica from the moment they met her, and her parents welcomed me into their family with open arms. Her younger sister immediately started creating Pinterest boards for wedding ideas, while my brother offered his backyard as a potential venue. Everything seemed perfect as we began planning our future together. Looking back, there were warning signs I completely missed. Jessica would occasionally mention her ex-boyfriend Dylan in conversation, her voice taking on a nostalgic tone I chose to ignore. I never felt threatened because she described their relationship as intense but ultimately toxic, saying they brought out the worst in each other. According to her, they had broken up 2 years before we met, and she had moved on completely. Other red flags appeared that I brushed aside. Jessica became oddly defensive whenever certain past relationships came up. She would change the subject or suddenly remember an urgent email she needed to send. When we started discussing wedding venues and dates, she always found reasons to postpone making firm decisions. The spring was too rainy, the summer too hot, the fall too busy with work projects, and winter too close to the holidays. Her behavior grew increasingly suspicious. She began keeping her phone face down and took calls in another room. Her previously open social media became more private, and she stayed late at work more frequently, citing urgent projects. When I suggested surprise lunch visits to her office, she discouraged them, claiming her workplace was too chaotic for guests. Our mutual friends noticed changes too. At barbecues and dinner parties, Jessica seemed distracted, checking her phone constantly and engaging less in group conversations. My friend Michael pulled me aside at his birthday gathering, asking if everything was okay between us. I defended her, blaming work, stress, and wedding planning anxiety. But his concern planted a seed of worry. The conversation that destroyed everything happened on a Friday evening. Jessica came home later than usual, her expression tense and guarded. She suggested we sit on the balcony with glasses of wine, which immediately set off alarm bells. Important conversations in our relationship always happened on that balcony. She fidgeted with her engagement ring, twisting it around her finger as she struggled to find words. Finally, she took a deep breath and said she needed to talk about something important, something about clarity and unresolved feelings. My stomach knotted as she explained that Dylan had reached out to her recently. They had coffee to catch up, and it had stirred up old emotions she thought were long gone. Jessica claimed she was confused and needed space to sort out her feelings before committing to marriage. Then came the devastating request. She wanted to take a break from our engagement, to date Dylan again, to see if there was still something there worth exploring. She promised that if things did not work out with him, she would return to me, and we could continue our wedding plans. The proposal left me speechless. My fiancée was essentially asking permission to cheat, with the safety net of returning if her affair proved disappointing. The woman I thought I knew would never suggest something so selfish and hurtful. Yet there she was waiting for my response as if she had asked to try a new restaurant rather than abandon our relationship. I remember my voice shaking as I asked if she was serious. Her response was calm, almost rehearsed, explaining that she needed this clarity before marriage. She framed it as something healthy and necessary, as if she were doing us both a favor. When I pointed out how disrespectful her request was, she became defensive, saying I was being controlling and unsupportive of her emotional journey. That night, as Jessica packed an overnight bag to stay with a friend, I sat alone in our apartment, surrounded by wedding planning books and venue brochures, feeling like I had stepped into someone else's nightmare. The following days passed in a blur of sleepless nights and emotional turmoil. I called in sick to work, unable to focus on code or meetings. My appetite disappeared, and I lost 7 pounds in that first week alone. Friends called and texted, but I ignored most attempts at contact, needing space to process what had happened. Michael came over unannounced with takeout food and refused to leave until I ate something. As my best friend since high school, he knew when I needed to be pushed out of isolation. Over containers of Chinese food, I finally let out everything I had been holding in. The betrayal, the humiliation, the anger, and underneath it all the devastating heartbreak. Michael listened without interrupting, then offered perspective that cut through my fog of pain. He pointed out that someone who truly loved me would never present such an ultimatum or use me as a safety net. His words hurt, but contained truth I needed to hear. Over the next 2 weeks, I noticed Jessica's belongings slowly disappearing from our apartment. She would come by while I was at work, taking clothes, books, and personal items. Each missing object felt like another small betrayal. The bathroom counter became less cluttered, her side of the closet gradually emptied, and her favorite coffee mug vanished from the kitchen cabinet. Social media delivered fresh wounds daily. Mutual friends posted photos showing Jessica and Dylan together at restaurants and bars, looking happy and comfortable. She had removed her relationship status entirely, while I still had engaged, to list it on my profile, a painful digital reminder of what I had lost. Our social circle fractured predictably. Some friends chose sides immediately, with Jessica's closest girlfriends supporting her decision as brave and authentic. Others tried to maintain relationships with both of us, creating awkward group dynamics. A few reached out privately to express their disapproval of her actions and offer support, which provided small comfort. My work performance suffered significantly. As a software engineer, my job required focus and problem-solving abilities that were currently occupied by replaying every moment of my relationship, searching for clues I had missed. My team leader noticed my distraction and suggested taking some personal time, which only increased my sense of failure. The most painful revelation came 3 weeks after Jessica left. Our mutual friend Taylor invited me for coffee, clearly uncomfortable with what she needed to share. According to Taylor, Jessica and Dylan had not reconnected recently, as Jessica had claimed. They had been in contact for months, exchanging messages and meeting for lunch several times before she asked for our break. Taylor showed me photos from a group dinner 2 months earlier, where Jessica had claimed to be working late. There she was, sitting next to Dylan at a restaurant across town, their body language clearly intimate. The timestamps confirmed this was long before our balcony conversation. This new information hit like a physical blow. What I thought was a sudden confusion was actually a calculated deception. Jessica had been emotionally unfaithful for months while continuing to plan our wedding. The engagement ring she wore while meeting her ex-boyfriend now seemed like a prop in an elaborate performance. More revelations followed. My future mother-in-law called awkwardly, explaining that she had seen Jessica with Dylan at a shopping mall weeks before our breakup. She had assumed it was an innocent encounter and did not want to create problems by mentioning it. My sister admitted noticing Jessica's changed behavior at our family Easter dinner. how she had stepped outside for a long phone call and returned looking guilty. As weeks passed, my emotions escalated from hurt to anger. I moved through the stages of grief in unpredictable waves. Some mornings I woke up in denial, expecting to find Jessica in the kitchen making coffee. Other days, rage consumed me as I packed away wedding planning materials and canceled deposits with vendors. The humiliation burned hottest when explaining the situation to those vendors. The sympathetic looks from the caterer, the awkward silence from the venue coordinator, the florist, who had already started growing specific flowers for our centerpieces, all reinforced the public nature of my private pain. 6 weeks after she left, I encountered Jessica and Dylan at our favorite coffee shop. They were sitting at what had been our regular table by the window. Jessica looked up as I entered, her expression flickering between guilt and defiance. Dylan had his arm draped possessively around her shoulders, wearing a smug smile that took all my self-control not to challenge. Instead, I turned and left without ordering, feeling their eyes on my back. The social awkwardness extended to family gatherings. Jessica had become close with my family, and her absence created a palpable tension. My mother avoided mentioning her, while my father awkwardly patted my shoulder whenever wedding plans were accidentally referenced. My younger cousin, unaware of the situation, asked when Jessica would arrive at our family barbecue, creating a painful silence around the picnic table. Throughout this period, Jessica sent occasional text messages checking in as if nothing major had happened. Her messages were casual, asking how I was doing or commenting on a TV show we used to watch together. Each text felt like she was testing the waters, ensuring her safety net remained intact while she explored her relationship with Dylan. I hit emotional rock bottom 2 months after she left. Sitting alone in our apartment on what would have been our wedding venue deposit deadline, I found myself staring at her texts, tempted to respond and leave the door open for her return. The thought that I might welcome her back after such betrayal made me realize how low my self-worth had fallen. I had become exactly what she expected, a convenient backup plan waiting patiently while she explored other options. My transformation began with an unexpected Sunday visit from my sister Kayla. Finding me unshaven and surrounded by takeout containers, she opened the curtains to let sunlight into the apartment for what felt like the first time in weeks. While forcing me to help her clean up, she delivered the wake-up call I needed. Kayla pointed out that by waiting for Jessica to potentially return, I was accepting the role of second choice. She asked if I would ever trust Jessica again after this betrayal, or if I would always wonder when the next break might happen. Her words struck a chord when she said, "My brother deserves to be someone's first choice, not their backup plan." That conversation triggered a realization that shifted my perspective entirely. I deserved better than what Jessica offered. Our relationship had been built on a shakier foundation than I believed, with her keeping one foot out the door while accepting my complete devotion. Self-respect demanded action, not passive waiting for someone who had already demonstrated such disregard for my feelings. The next morning I called a real estate agent and began looking for a new apartment. Continuing to live in the space Jessica and I had shared kept me tethered to painful memories. 2 weeks later, I signed a lease on a modern one-bedroom in a different neighborhood, symbolically moving forward with my life. I reconnected with friends I had neglected during my relationship. My college roommate convinced me to join his weekend basketball league, while an old work colleague invited me to his book club. These activities filled my previously empty calendar and introduced me to new people who knew nothing about my broken engagement. Physical transformation became another focus. I joined a gym and hired a personal trainer, channeling my emotional pain into physical improvement. Morning runs cleared my head, and weight training sessions left me too exhausted for rumination. Within months, my body reflected the internal changes taking place as I reclaimed control of my life. Professional growth provided another avenue for rebuilding. I enrolled in advanced certification courses for software engineering and volunteered for challenging projects at work. My focus returned stronger than before, earning recognition from management and restoring my confidence in my abilities outside of my relationship identity. As part of my healing, I established firm boundaries with Jessica. I finally responded to her texts with a businesslike message, explaining that I was moving on and preferred no contact unless absolutely necessary for logistical reasons. I declined social invitations where I knew she would be present and muted her on social media platforms without the drama of unfriending or blocking. An unexpected career opportunity emerged through my renewed networking efforts. A tech startup offered me a senior position with creative input and equity in the company. The role represented both professional advancement and a fresh start in a new environment. Accepting it felt like another step in reclaiming my narrative. Dating remained low on my priority list, as I focused on personal growth, but I eventually accepted setups from friends and created online dating profiles. These casual dates served as practice in vulnerability and helped me recognize that my experience with Jessica was not universal. Not everyone treats relationships as provisional or partners as disposable. The most significant test of my transformation came exactly 6 weeks and 3 days after our break began. Jessica called on a Tuesday evening, her voice carrying a forced casualness that immediately set me on edge. She suggested meeting for coffee to catch up, adding that she had been doing some thinking about us. Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet at a neutral cafe downtown. Jessica arrived looking both familiar and strange, wearing the sundress she knew I liked her. Engagement ring conspicuously absent. After awkward small talk, she revealed the purpose of our meeting. Things with Dylan had not worked out as she hoped. They had broken up the previous weekend after a series of arguments revealed the same compatibility issues that ended their relationship the first time. With practiced vulnerability, Jessica explained that this experience had provided the clarity she sought. She now knew with certainty that what we had was real and worth fighting for. She wanted to come home and resume our engagement, perhaps with a fresh start and couples counseling to rebuild trust. As she spoke, I observed her with a detachment that would have been impossible months earlier. I recognized her familiar persuasive techniques, the tilted head, the strategic touches on my hand, the carefully timed emotional pauses. Once effective, they now seemed transparent and manipulative. When she finished, I thanked her for her honesty and explained my position. The break she requested had indeed provided clarity for both of us. I had discovered my value and would no longer accept being someone's contingency plan. The relationship she described returning to no longer existed, because I was no longer the same person who had waited hopefully for her return. Her shock was genuine and revealing. She had expected me to welcome her back with gratitude, perhaps after token resistance. My transformation from devoted fiancé to self-possessed individual disrupted her narrative. When persuasion failed, she cycled through tactics, emotional appeals, reminders of our history, suggestions that I was being unnecessarily harsh, and finally tears combined with promises of change. I remained firm, explaining that while I wished her well, our paths had permanently diverged. As I paid for our coffees and prepared to leave, the realization in her eyes confirmed what I already knew. The power dynamic she had relied upon had fundamentally shifted. For perhaps the first time, she was seeing me clearly, not as her safety net, but as someone capable of choosing his own happiness. In the weeks following our coffee shop conversation, Jessica made several attempts to reconnect. She sent messages reminiscing about our happy memories, dropped off my favorite cookies at my office, and even enlisted mutual friends to mention her regrets casually in conversation. Each attempt reinforced my decision rather than weakening it. Our social circle adjusted to this new reality with varying degrees of awkwardness. Some friends, who had supported Jessica, expecting our inevitable reunion, now seemed uncomfortable with my firm boundary. Others expressed admiration for my stance, though I took no pleasure in their approval. This was not about proving a point, but about honoring my self-worth. I experienced occasional moments of doubt, usually late at night, when memories of our good times felt most vivid. During these moments, I reminded myself of the complete picture, not just the edited highlights. The woman who could propose our arrangement was not the partner I had believed her to be, regardless of our happy memories. My professional life flourished as I poured energy into the new startup position. Our team successfully launched a revolutionary scheduling application that attracted significant investor interest. My contribution earned me additional equity and a feature in a respected tech publication. Success in this arena strengthened my identity, beyond being Jessica's ex-fiancée. Through a professional networking event, I met Amanda, a pediatric surgeon, with a quick wit and refreshing directness. We began as casual friends, occasionally meeting for coffee between her demanding hospital shifts. Unlike my immediate connection with Jessica, my relationship with Amanda built slowly on a foundation of genuine friendship and respect. When we eventually began dating, Amanda's approach to relationships provided a stark contrast to my previous experience. She valued clear communication over game playing and demonstrated commitment through consistent actions rather than grand gestures. Most importantly, she viewed relationships as partnerships rather than provisional arrangements subject to better offers. My healing journey progressed in non-linear fashion. Some days brought complete freedom from the past, while others dredged up unexpected pain triggered by songs, places, or memories. I learned to acknowledge these feelings without being controlled by them, understanding that healing is a process rather than an event. The most significant shift occurred in how I viewed the entire experience. Initial bitterness evolved into a strange gratitude. Jessica's actions, while painful, prevented me from marrying someone who fundamentally did not share my values around commitment and respect. The break she requested ultimately freed me to find authentic happiness rather than the illusion of it. Finding forgiveness took longer than expected, not for Jessica's benefit but for my own peace. Carrying anger required emotional energy, better directed elsewhere. Forgiveness did not mean excusing her behavior or welcoming her back into my life, but releasing the hold that bitterness had on my present happiness. I became more attuned to relationship warning signs I had previously ignored. With new awareness, I recognized the importance of actions matching words of consistency over intensity and of mutual respect as non-negotiable. These insights improved not just my romantic relationship with Amanda, but all my connections. My confidence grew not from external validation but from trusting my own judgment and values. Making difficult decisions aligned with my self-respect built a resilience that extended beyond relationships into all areas of life. I became more comfortable setting boundaries, expressing needs, and walking away from situations that did not serve my well-being. 1 year after Jessica asked for our break, my life had transformed completely. I had earned a promotion at the startup, moved to a larger apartment with a view of the city park, and built a fulfilling relationship with Amanda based on mutual respect and authentic connection. My friendships had deepened with those who supported my growth, while superficial connections had naturally fallen away. Jessica eventually moved to another city for a job opportunity, according to mutual friends. Our direct contact had ceased entirely, and her departure removed the lingering possibility of awkward encounters. I wished her well silently, hoping she had found whatever she was searching for when she left our relationship. The most profound lesson from this painful chapter was understanding that sometimes the greatest gift is not getting what you think you want. Had Jessica never asked for that break, I might have married someone who considered commitment conditional and love negotiable. The pain of her betrayal ultimately led me to a more authentic and satisfying life than the one I had desperately tried to preserve. Looking back now, I realized that when Jessica said she would come back, if things did not work out with Dylan, she was offering me the chance to be her consolation prize. Instead, I made myself the priority I deserved to be all along. By choosing self-respect over familiar comfort, I gained far more than I lost. What about you? Have you ever had to choose between your dignity and someone you loved? How did you handle it? Share your experience in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to hear more journeys of overcoming life challenges. Remember, sometimes the hardest choices lead to the most beautiful destinations. Thank you for listening, and I hope my story helps someone who might be facing a similar crossroad right now.